Hello and welcome back to Insanely Creating, where we have an episode of love. It's all about love. Obviously quite late for Valentine's Day, but no matter, we are going to be doing an amazing collaboration with a fantastic group of people. Included in the creepy Valentine's collab are Diamonds Craft, Lady Dynamite Creates, Telly Dollies, Stitchwick Witch, Catmelian Studio, Starlight Dream Dolls, Doll Afterlife, Lemon Kitten Creations, Fairykin, Steffu Dolls, myself, and Unbridled Artistry. Catmelian's doll will be coming out very, very soon, and I wanted to give a special shout out to Dolly Mixtures, who were a big part of this collab but had to drop out really early on, but hopefully we'll be able to collab with them again soon. But for now, let's get on with our own doll, and we're going to have a go at making a sad voodoo doll who has been used in a love ritual and has gone through some things and she's feeling very, very sad. So let's get started. Now, I thought this was a great opportunity to use this Draculaura that has the very limited arm articulation, so I can just remove the arms completely and make my own. I'm also going to cut out the front of her body so that we can create a pin cushion so that she can be voodooed. So the very first thing I'm going to do is use my utter brute strength to just rip her arms off. Later I will go ahead and dig out the remnants that are in her shoulders, but I give up on that quite quickly here and just go straight in for a haircut. Cutting the hair as close as I can to the head because then it is just so much easier to remove the hair plugs. A little bit more of my brute strength to rip off her head, revealing one of those weird lazy neck pegs. For no real reason, I decided I didn't want it to be that big, so I got the hacksaw out and hacked away at it. Well, once again, my brute strength was too much for this doll to handle, and I broke off the peg completely. But no matter, I'll just hack away at more of this doll. I'm sure that will fix it. While I contemplate how exactly I'm going to fix this, let's dig out all of this nasty hair out of her head. Using my thinnest needle nose pliers and heating up the head a little bit, I dig in there and scoop out all of the nasty, gluey, hairy mixture. Now it's time to clear out her armholes. I realised that I probably could have done this later on when I cut into the chest, but at this point, this is what I wanted to do, so this is what's happening. I do this bit slowly and carefully as my drill bit liked to get stuck in the melty plastic. The same applies for when we start cutting into her front. I do this very, very slowly as the plastic was melting and getting all gunked up in the blades. Once that main part of her chest was off, I was able to go around, sand the edges, make sure they were nice and smooth. I then had the brilliant idea of using this access point to be able to attach her head again. So using a kind of ball jointed doll method, I attached a bead onto a piece of elastic and threaded that through her chest and up into her neck. I'll then be able to attach the head back on through these pieces of elastic, but I will have to chop off the top of her head so that I'm able to tie a knot inside her head. And the bead inside her chest will stop her head from falling off, as well as this metal D-ring that I found on some curtains. Now, using pure acetone, we will remove the face makeup as well as the colour that has been put onto her skull because she will not be having black hair. And if you lovely lot are actually enjoying these little videos that I'm putting out there when I can, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe, a share, all these lovely free things that really help me out within the YouTube algorithm to help get the old artwork to more people. That'd be amazing. Thank you so much. Now we're actually going to remove these very delicate little Draculaura ears because we're going to create art. I really want to create some little clay sticky out ears that are going to be inspired by Delightful's Halloween video that she did of her little witch. They were just so cute and sticky out, and I know a few artists have done them, but this is where I saw them be done, so that's who inspired me for this one. So I stick armature wire into the sides of her head and then used epoxy clay to mould on the ears into the shape that I wanted. I left them to dry for a whole 24 hours before I went in with the paint. But when they were ready, I went in with my Folk Art Acrylic matte paint. I tried to get the colour as close as possible. I even added in a little bit of white into this particular shade of pink, but it still wasn't perfect. But I ended up just covering it up when I did the blushing later on anyway, and it's quite well hidden, I must say. Now to fix those super stiff arms, we're going to give her super flexible arms, and she's getting arms made out of wire. I just need to give her some shoulders because otherwise her body shape's just a little bit bizarre. So again, with the epoxy sculpt, we're going in there, and this will also help keep the wires in place so that they're not shuffling around all over the place. I then fill the chest cavity up, only about halfway, with hot glue. This keeps the bead in place, and I just wanted to. This gives us a great base so that we can start filling her up with stuffing. This way her chest will be nice and pillowy, and we can stick her with pins, but I need to cover it up with a little bit of fabric. So with some scrap cotton that I got off a t-shirt, I'm just going to cover up her torso so that it keeps the stuffing inside. I pull the fabric nice and tight while I'm gluing it down. This way it creates a bit more of a firmer pillow rather than a loose pillow, and the pins will hold a lot better. Next are her arms, so I have lightly hot glued on some stuffing, and I'm going to wrap them with some wool that I feel matches her skin tone rather well. I wrap it around quite tightly, and I tried to keep it very close together so that there aren't any gaps. If there are any gaps, I went backwards and went over the area again, so that there wasn't any of the stuffing poking through. I then wrapped the legs, adding hot glue as I went to keep it all in place. I added a little extra hot glue just around the knees so that we were able to still move her knees and bend them, but the wool didn't sort of go all over the place and spread. Apologies for the out of focus, but here I was just pointing out the difference in colour. You can still kind of see it even through the blur. Here we go. I remember to unblur it. I'm so clever. Yes, so you can see the difference in colour from the paint to the actual doll colour. It's subtle, but the difference is still very much visible, especially in real life. So we're going to cover up that little area with some blushing in the hopes of hiding it a little bit better. I decided to still brush her limbs. I hadn't blushed on top of wool before, but it seemed to stick, it works, and it didn't ever come away from the doll. So there you go. You can blush a wool appendage. Hello guys, just a quick little note. I've suddenly come back to my crafting table after being away for a few weeks now. The reason being, and I apologise for this, the reason it is for this man here. I made the mistake of downloading Baldur's Gate 3 and have literally played it non-stop. I became completely obsessed. So now that I have pretty much completed the game, I have now come back and will be getting on with my projects. Thank goodness the Valentine's collab that this is part of wasn't set for Valentine's Day, because I would have messed up badly there. Thankfully it was already set for later on in the year, so I'm able to get on and still complete it, hopefully in time. So yeah, sorry about that guys. The first thing I wanted to do as soon as I was back to it was create her clothes. So I made a pattern. I then chopped that pattern up into lots of pieces, making sure I marked each piece so that I remember where it all went, and then transferred those pieces onto here so that they could each have their own seam allowance. I will then cut out all the pieces from all these different types of little cottons so that it creates a lovely patchwork dress. Obviously, if you guys do this, you will do this a lot neater than I will. Now, just a warning, I do this very roughly, so please make sure that you do this way more sensibly than I ever do. But I just take the pattern piece that I've created, place it underneath, simply sketch out each piece, making sure they have their own little bit of room so that I can then add all of these seam allowance around each piece. I've kept the masters by so that I can try and puzzle piece it all together later, but I do also add labels as well, just so that it makes my job a little bit easier when putting them together later on. I hand sew everything on this piece because all of the pieces are just too small to go through my sewing machine. But once they are all sewn together, I then use my Yoo-hoo glue to open up all of the seams. This helps all of the pieces stay nice and flat against the body once they're all put together. Once all of the little pieces are together to create the main big pieces, they then get stitched together, and I cut down any seam allowance as well, just so that it's not bulky on the inside. I fold over the hem and I hem it down with some Yoo-hoo glue, and I do that along the top as well and on the sleeves. And now I'm going to add a little bit of embroidery detail with a blanket stitch. To do the blanket stitch, I go through the fabric, pull it, but before it's all the way tight, I just go back through that loop I've just created and then pull it tight. This catches the thread. I then carry on and it creates the blanket stitching pattern. Next is the face up. I use a similar colour, so with this doll everything's pink, so I'm using a pink to sketch out the eyes into the shape that I'm after. We're going for a very sad voodoo doll, so I'm using reference pictures to try and create a shape that looks very sad. I keep going with each layer until I cannot physically put on any more watercolour pencil. I will then go and give it one good spray with a Mr. Super Clear matte sealant, and then I will go in to start doing the next layer. I keep building up with each layer that I add on, either building up opacity like in the sclera of the eye, or if I've decided I want to just sort of change something slightly, I will do that slowly using the layers of the Mr. Super Clear and the watercolour pencils to try and get it looking exactly how I want. For this particular face up, I believe I ended up using about 5 or possibly 6 layers of Mr. Super Clear during the face up, so that is not including the 2 layers that I did to prep the face and the 2 layers that I did at the end to seal it. I finish off the details using acrylic and the smallest, thinnest little brush that I own to try and add in some lovely little eyelashes. I will, I think, switch over and use gouache paints though for the future. I don't own any yet, so I will try and get a hold of some because I found acrylics dried a little too quickly while I was trying to use them and made it all clumpy, and I couldn't get the details that I was really after. So I think gouache is the way forward. I then use my normal Liquitex varnish to add some gloss to the eyes and the lips. But our girl wasn't quite looking sad enough, so I'm going to add some UV resin tears. I squeeze a little bit out onto some greaseproof paper, and then I use some of my silicone tools to drip it down onto her eyes. The first drip that I did was a little bit thick, the second lot was much better. So if I ever do this again, I've learnt my lesson not to be so heavy-handed with this stuff. Once the tears were looking especially teary, I decided to put her all back together now because I want to do her hair and I need her head to be back together to be able to do that. As she is a voodoo doll of sorts, I'm going to use this really yarny looking yarn to make her hair. I'm not going to unravel it or anything, I'm going to keep it exactly as it is, and I'm not even going to reroute it. I'm literally just going to stick it directly to her head. It kind of reminds me slightly of the Coraline dolls that are being made, inspired by the movie. So I've gone for a center parting, I am folding each piece in half and I am just laying it down on her head. I'm hoping that once it's all on there, it will just help her look extra sad because even her hair has absolutely no life to it whatsoever. It looks limp and drab and just very despairing. As you can see, I just keep following the head and go get closer and closer. I don't know how to describe this, just look at what I'm doing. I really wanted those cute little ears to stick out if possible, so I tried parting the hair without exposing the scalp underneath. Just to help give her a slightly worn out look, or that she's been created for a while now, I decided to just unravel just the very ends of the hair, just so that they sort of look, yeah, a little bit worn, a little bit tattered. So last little bit is to get her dressed. Thank goodness I made the armholes in this dress a little bit bigger than I would for any normal Monster High doll, because these wool arms are a little chunkier than the average. They're gorgeous, but my goodness, they were a struggle to get into this dress. She's never coming out of this dress, so I'm going to go ahead and sew her into it. And then we will reveal our final photos. But thank you so much to everyone who has stuck with this video. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, to show my art, even though I was horrendously distracted in the middle of this project. I cannot believe it. I was distracted by a gorgeous vampire elf. If you know what on earth I am talking about, please go ahead and pop a little comment down below, because I would love to talk about this game with anyone right now, because obsessions. Who knows, maybe my next thing to make should be something from Baldur's Gate 3. If you guys have any ideas, pop them down below and let's discuss it, because it sounds like a good idea to me. But enough of that. Our doll is done, and it is time to reveal our final photos. A huge thank you to all of the people that contributed to this collaboration. You guys are absolutely amazing, and it's been an absolute honour to work alongside you. There will be links down below, and I usually make playlists of all the collaborations that I'm in, so please go ahead and watch all of these amazing dolls, because these guys are super talented. Thank you again for joining me in this doll creation. It has been an absolute pleasure, and until next time, bye bye.